ready? All right, so you're making sure your glass top is clean. You can use the razor blade to scrape off any thing that might be on the glass. You don't want anything that's going to block the light and block your stencil. You have two buttons that we pay attention to, and then this dial. The two buttons are the vacuum on off. I'll show you that in a second. We will vacuum it first. It squeezes the rubber down against the glass, presses it really tight against the screen, and gives us a nice sharp stencil. So you want to make sure the vacuum is tight before you turn on the on-off. Then this dial are a bunch of little push buttons, and this is to set your timer. It's hard to see in the dark, but there's minutes and then numbers. Minutes, seconds. I have it set on M, which is minutes, and right now I have it set on 3. So this will go for 3 minutes. 3 minutes should be good for Rubylith. If we were doing, let's say, a Xerox paper stencil, you would want less time, and we would probably go to seconds and probably like try a 40 to 50, 60 or 40 seconds. 6 seconds would be a minute, so 40 seconds. Because the Xerox line, you know, it's a dark line, but it's not completely light resistant. So the longer it sits on the light table, the more opportunity light has to get through the black line. So we do a faster exposure. When we do that faster exposure, we have to be careful washing it out. And we wash it out with a less strong stream, and just be patient. And I'll show you when we wash out what I mean. So we come over to our light table. We've cleaned off the glass. And we're going to press our screen up near the end. There's these knobs back there. We want to be near the knobs, maybe touching the knobs. And then we're going to set our stencils in the working area of our screen. And that's at least an inch to the inside of your duct tape. And you can get multiple stencils on one screen. So you want to play around with how they fit. Maybe put them at angles if you have to. This one can overlap the acetate of the other stencil. All right, and that looks like I've got all of them on there. I want to pull the rope over the screen into the duct tape area. The rope should come over. The ropes have to be on the glass at least, but I'm pulling it over onto the screen itself. I'm going to put this down, latch it on both sides, turn on the vacuum. That has to be off first. Turn on the vacuum. So this is off, this is on. And you can see when you get up close, I had it on earlier. You can see the rubber tightening up, and you'll know it's nice and tight when you see the outline of that rope and the outline of this rope very clearly. And you can even see, if you come up close, you can see the outline of the duct tape in the rubber. Don't be shy, it won't bite you. Not more. So you can see where the duct tape is. So you know it's pretty tight. It's holding your stencil in place. So once I see that, I'm ready to turn this on. So now I'm going to turn this on. And we know it's on because we can see the blue UV lights in there. This is not a tanning bed. I should not find anybody laying on this. But 3 minutes should be good for these stencils. We used to have a smaller light table that took 20 minutes to expose, and that sucked because it was so slow. But this I think 3 minutes exposes it well and hardens the rest of the emulsion. Sometimes what I like to do, just to be sure, once I've exposed the stencil to the light and I've washed it out and we can see our stencils, like that Ars Nova stencil we have over here. So once we've washed it out and we can see our stencils, I'll take this and put it back on the light table without the Rubylith, just to expose it to light. So I'll put it back on and I'll expose it for another 3 minutes. And it just hardens the emulsion around the stencils, and that way when you're working you don't find your stencil breaking down as you're pulling or washing. So I just put it back in without Rubylith just to let the light hit the whole screen after it's been washed out, if that makes sense. Does that make sense? And I can show you that too when this turns off. And so now we just wait 3 minutes. Yeah.
So I'm just kind of confused about sort of the order of the steps. So are we supposed to, so when we do this stage, we should have emulsified it, right? And then have done like the painting, whatever that.
Well, that's a separate stencil, so that's if you're using that.
Okay.
So you'll have to decide where that fits in the layering. So should that stencil be before your Rubylith stencils, or should it be after? That depends on what you're using.
The layering.
The layering. So,
okay.
So yeah, that if you did your Rubylith first, so you've got your Rubylith cut out, you've put the emulsion on your screen, then you expose, once it's dry, you expose the stencils to the screen.
So you just put the stencil on top of the emulsified surface, right?
Well,
okay.
I put it on the glass and the screen over that.
Okay.
That's important. The Rubylith is on the glass, the screen goes on top of the Rubylith. And you can see the direction I have the screen. The silk is touching the glass. Does that make sense? You can see that. So
Yeah.
otherwise it wouldn't work.
Okay.
But I've had students put it backwards and have the Rubylith on top of the screen, and it doesn't work. The light hits all the emulsion. So
Right.
the whole idea of the Rubylith is to block the light. So
Right.
that's why it's on the glass.
Okay.
So once you have your screens, and you print those stencils, and then if those stencils are done and you have your last layer, which might be the drawing fluid, you would remove the emulsion with stencil remover, which that bucket underneath the sink is filled with stencil remover. It's already mixed, and I can show you how to take the stencil off today too. And then you get your screen clean, and then you do your drawing fluid. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so now that it turned off, we wait for the rubber to loosen up a little bit, and then we open it, and then we bring it over to the sink. And our hose got detached. If you find the hose detached, it just screws on. And we use cold water. Hot water will break the emulsion, so we don't want to use hot water. Sorry, this is being weird. All right, so when you're taking off, when you're washing the emulsion out, you don't need a really strong stream. I don't need it to be like a tight stream like that. It can be loose like this. If you were doing the less exposed time for the Xerox, you would want it even lighter. And man, this is not on right and creating a mess. But I'm just gonna wash it. So I'm just washing out. You can see where the stencil is. What I want to do is be able to see through it, and right now you can still see the green emulsion, so it just takes patience. I don't want to put a really hard stream on this. I just want to be patient. And I keep turning the screen. Something is not right with that, but I'll fix that. This was an old screen, and I think it had hardened emulsion on it already in that spot, so ignore that. But what you should see when you're done, and if that's still recording, is that you should be able to see all the way through your stencils, no emulsion blocking. Like I said, this spot up here was from the screen before where the emulsion hadn't cleaned. So ignore that. That if you saw something like that, you would try to hit that harder with the hose. But this is what you want. You should be able to see all the way through it, and you're ready to print at this point. You just dry it off, and then you're ready to start your printing. Does that make sense? Okay. So then the next thing to do is to remove this, but I'll do a different video for that.
Okay.